last time on Gran Turismo 4, we officially got through part 2 of the rally events, which I basically did all in one day of recording, if you can believe it. So I got through all of the normal rally events, and as of recording this episode, which I think is episode 43, we have now driven a total of 22 different cars. And now, I think it's time for us to get back to the driving missions, as we are now going through the Slipstream battles. So, these are 4 different missions here, as of which basically we have 1 lap battles for missions 21 and 22, and for the other 2, these are technically 3 lap battles with these 2 cars here. So, our first one, we'll be driving a Nissan Cube. In the second one, we'll be driving the Honda Odyssey. Then, for the third one, it's the NissanSkylineGT-R R34. And last but not least will be the Amuse S2000 GT1. So, without further ado, let's begin with the Boxy Boys. And so here we are, and as you might have guessed, we are officially doing our Slipstream battles at Test Course. And as it says there, of course, it's 10 kilometers in length, and it is super high speed, and it also has banked fast corners. And there's the description. And basically what we're doing here is, well, we're more or less drafting our way to the front. Basically, we're more or less schmoving our way from the back of the field to the front of the field in 1 lap. I should also mention these Slipstream battles are technically one-make races, because the opponents we'll be up against will ironically be in the exact same car as us. So I just figured I would get that out of the way. So basically, this is just a matter of patience, mostly. Just basically staying where you are, waiting for pretty much the race as well as the lap to basically come to you, or laps in the other 2 Slipstream battles. Basically, you just have to be patient, and I think once you get off the first set of banks here at Test Course, that's when the effects of the Slipstream will really start to take hold. Basically, we're just more or less drafting our way to the front. So if you can more or less hold position here and not use too much steering input, then I think you should be fine. So try to minimize the steering input as much as you can on the banks, and then once you manage to get off the banks, you will manage to develop enough turbulence from the tailwind, I guess you could say, that comes from the car in front of you. Basically, that's more or less what the Slipstream does. You more or less have to patiently wait behind the car that's in front of you, let the speed as well as pretty much the lap itself, like I said before, come to you, and then if you know you're confident enough to pass them, then I think you should be okay. And we have got a battle here. Honestly, not too surprising, but either way. It's only 4 seconds to catch up to the leader, and I can definitely say the pack here is very close. I think we should be able to make our way up to the front as long as I don't put in too much steering input on the bankings. I'd say these are probably about 20-degree banks, but then again this does come from someone who doesn't really know a lot about the steepness of bankings, except for saying that they're fast and they're steep. So I think it's fair to say that tailwind I got from that Nissan Cube that briefly passed me on the straightaway, he did actually help me to get up to the front earlier than I did before, and this probably will take a few tries for you to get used to if you don't understand how drafting works. You will come to understand the effects of the draft soon enough from the cars in front of you, and then if you just manage to remain patient long enough, then you will eventually manage to get to the front. Basically, the key to succeeding with this is patience and timing when it comes to working your way to the front. I'm also glad to say that in terms of us racing here at Test Course, we get to do it far less often in this game than we did in GT3, where it was basically with every other event that we had to go to Test Course in GT3, and in all honesty, it just really didn't sit well with me personally, but I am glad to say we get to race at Test Course a lot less in this game. Anyway, Nissan Cube race done, let's now move on to the Honda Odyssey. And so here is our second Slipstream battle, and where this time we are using the Honda Odyssey. Not quite as much of a boxy boy as the Nissan Cube was, but still relatively boxy because, well, this thing is a bit bigger than the Nissan Cube, to say the least. Anyway, scroll down through the description. We're also driving a faster car technically, so speeds of course will be up. This is definitely what I would call the concrete definition of a family car, in terms of what I think about the Honda Odyssey. That's probably the only real response you'll most likely get from me, but either way, I think it sounds believable enough. So, as I said before, to succeed here at Test Course, basically it's all about patience and timing, and making sure that you don't run into the back of the car or cars in front of you, because if you do, then you'll get penalised, and it will cost you dearly, because the margin for error here at Test Course, because of just how goddamn fast it is, the margins for error here, they're practically non-existent. And you really have got to watch yourself in terms of being able to clear your opponents cleanly. Contact is not advised if you want to succeed with this. Basically, just stay behind the car in front of you for long enough, and then if you know you're close enough to make a pass, whether it be on the inside or the outside, and there is enough space for both you and the car in front, then you should more or less be fine, from what I can see. So, it's fair to say that with most cars in this game, Test Course is a pretty long lap, It is 10 kilometers in length, which I would say is equivalent to about 6, maybe 7 miles. It's probably more like 7, but either way, just schmooving my way up to the front. A little bit of contact there with the leader, but I think we should be okay with that. I did, of course, have the racing groove as well as the pretty much the preferred groove when I pulled off the pass, so I think we should be Gucci. And 3 minutes later, and we have made it to the front. Hey, I guessed right. It is about 6 miles in length, 10k. Say probably 6.3 miles, I think, is what 10 kilometers is. Anyway, Honda Odyssey race is now done. And now, this is where it's going to get harder, because the field is going to be more spread out for our other 2 missions. And it is fair to say you will need to be patient with these next 2. Otherwise, if you're not, then they will fuck you up, to put it simply. And so, this is where we now move into the 3-lap Slipstream battles. And where this time, we are going up against NissanSkylineGT-Rs. Where this time we are going against NissanSkylineGT-Rs. And basically, there's your description for what you have to do. Obviously don't put in too much steering input whilst you're at it. You're obviously driving a much faster car now than you were before. The leader does have a gap ahead of you, but under the circumstances, if you do manage to at least stay with the pack of cars in front of you, then you should be able to catch up to the leader soon enough. Yeah, 2 things about this mission. First of all, fuck this mission. Second of all, this is basically super speedway racing, as well as pack racing at probably its absolute worst. Because you're constantly having to basically draft your way with the pack up to the front. And it basically just feels even more null and void than pretty much a super speedway race at Talladega. Because if there's one thing I would honestly make a fair comparison to Task Course about, it's that this course is basically Talladega. In terms of the speed, and also just in terms of the sheer lengths. That you just have to go balls to the wall to somehow work your way to the front. And it's for that reason alone that I really hate this mission. Because I have now been recording this for 3 days, and the closest I've actually come to winning it is being 2 tenths off. Yeah, I'm gonna let him go, just for a second. Again, I need the pack to stay with me if we are gonna have any sort of shot of beating this. And at this time, it just feels like it's becoming harder and harder to just find those shots. But yeah, you need to draft with the pack as much as you can, and basically stay on the throttle as much as you can. Two different things that I can honestly say probably make this the most nearly inhospitable challenge this game physically has to offer. And it really is becoming inhospitable at this stage for most of it. So yeah, as I said before, you basically need to let the pack pass you and repass you, if they have any shots to do so. Because that probably is the best way for you to actually get to the front. It's also how you can gain the most time. And yes, for want of a better phrase, it does involve some lifting. So you have got to lift off the gas for a split second or so to actually gain those all-important tenths of a second, possibly seconds themselves. I'm honestly not sure which. The one thing I can definitely say for sure is that this mission is evil. If there's one word I would use to describe this mission, I would definitely say evil comes pretty close towards describing just how bad it is. To try and just keep going balls to the wall, and then to somehow find yourself within striking distance of the leader. We're honestly just 8 days into 2025 as of recording this, and I can definitely say that by the time this is done, this will probably be one of the most satisfying things I have beaten this year. Because it's almost straight up impossible. Because at one point it would have been straight up impossible to imagine just how I would have beaten someone who is basically just so far, far away. That is a Shrek 2 reference, by the way. And it's only because of my intuition to basically work with the pack that I'm now just 3 seconds back. So I think it's fair to say that my technique of passing and then repassing the AI, in other words, overtaking and then re-overtaking, it seems to be working out for me, because it actually feels like I might have a shot at this now. There is definitely a chance, because I was only 3 seconds off by the time I got to the end of the previous lap. So I'm definitely close, to say the least. I might actually have a shot at this. It might just be possible. But I need to get close enough to have a run at the leader. I've also been recording this now for 39 minutes. So either this is probably going to be the shot I'll get to either make or break this run. And I need someone to give me a push from behind if that's going to be possible. I'd say the red Skyline is probably the best shot I have. Oh, I'm in the draft. I'm in the draft. I have a shot. I definitely have a shot this time. I'm closing right in. Closing. 175, 176, 177. Looks like 177 is going to be the top speed. Yes! Finally! I've actually taken the lead. Thank God. This took me 3 days to do. 3 fucking days is what it took me to do. And yet, right when I got to the 40-minute mark, I did not think I was actually going to take the lead in terms of recording on what is now my 3rd day. I honestly thought for sure this was going to take at least another hour, but I'm so glad this is done. Thank God. A 703.28. And I finished with a 1.569 second margin of victory. Nice. Yeah, by the way, I am saving this replay. And I think we're gonna get, 10 grand from this. Honestly, I feel like it should have been a little bit more, like maybe 15 grand, because then that would have doubled on the 7.5k I got for the first 2 missions, but again, because it's a new day, and also because, well, I spent 3 days trying to get that run in, I'm just glad to say it's over. I can definitely say, if there's one thing I know about that mission, you definitely have to be slots level of lucky in order to actually get it done. And I'm so glad to say that time around, I finally did get it done. As I said before, it took me 3 days of taping this one mission to actually get somewhere, and now that I actually have got somewhere with this, I'm gonna make damn sure I save the game before I get on with the next mission. Because there is no fucking way in hell I am doing this mission again. It almost makes me... Huh, that's odd. I thought for sure a replay was saved. Well, maybe it wasn't. Okay. Wait, have we done it? Okay, I might have to remove a replay here for a second. Well, I knew it was going to come eventually. Fortunately, however, I already recorded. Oh, it's at the bottom. Okay. Well, one of these I can get rid of. Oh yeah, by the way, we can actually erase replays. I am finding these out as I go along. I did not think I was going to save at the bottom. Well, just going to get rid of one of these. I do find it weird to say that it's saved at the bottom, but whatever. If it works, it works. Don't really give a shit about the rest. Anyway, after spending probably 2, maybe 3 minutes trying to get that done, here's your finishing order, as I finally beat the piss yellow Skyline by under 1.6 seconds. Then the black Skyline completes the podium, red finishes 4th, white finishes 5th, and at the back, it was silver. I'm so glad I got this done. Okay, let's now move on to our next one, and save the game. Because we have autosave on. Alrighty, the game is now saved, which means whatever happens from here, I don't have to worry about doing that absolute bitch of Mission 23 over again. Something which I only did because I basically chose to let the field pass me and then repass me and then basically just give me about as much speed as I could possibly do. Anyway, for our final Slipstream battle, we are driving the Amuse S2000 for another 3 laps around test course. And I think outside of this set of 4 missions, we're only racing at test course a total of, I believe, either 3 or 4 times in the race events themselves, which I'm so thankful to say is significantly less than what we had to do in GT3, when we were basically racing at test course about as many as, I think at least 40 times in GT3. I don't know how many times it is to be sure, but it has to be at least 40 times where we have to race a test course in GT3. And that's not just withstanding the Like the Wind event and also, you know, the championship events that have test course. So driving the Amuse S2000 GT1, and I think it's fair to say that this one is going to be more fun, as I'm now hitting 214, almost 215, down the backstretch, got 6.6 seconds to make up. I'm pretty confident in saying that because these cars are way faster than the Skylines we drove before, this is definitely going to be easier from what I can see. At least I know this one is not too hard to get the gold on. You just have to basically draft your way through the field, but the field this time is separated. And it's fair to say that this one definitely looks like it's going to be easier, as the gap is now under 6 seconds, and it looks like we're going to continually close that gap. So 5.3 seconds is now the gap. I definitely feel like this mission is going to be a lot easier than the previous one, as the lowest I'm really dropping down to is just under 200. I'm convinced in saying it might take me a few tries to get there, but it's fair to say that because the field is more spread out, there's definitely more of a shot of me getting this one done. Because I feel as though I have a bit more control this time over my destiny, because the cars we are driving are much faster than the ones we've driven before. It's also because we're essentially driving tuned models, so that probably also helps. So 3 seconds is now the gap to the leader. I definitely have a strong feeling that says we are going to get to the front of the pack before too long in this Slipstream race. On my third day of recording mission 23, it looks like we'll probably get this one first try, because I know that when you're in the draft, or the Slipstream as we call it here in Europe, basically the draft, the unbelievable amount of time you can make up on a course like this, it's almost unreal to just think about how fast you're really going around this course over a prolonged distance of time. But nonetheless, I have definitely found a way to make myself look like one of the benefactors. So it's fair to say this mission is definitely easier than the one we just did. Way easier, in fact. Because the previous one took me 3 days to get a winning run in the books. And while this one, it's probably going to take me less than 6 minutes or so to actually get this run in. So that definitely goes to show you just how much easier this mission has been in comparison to pretty much all the other missions. So 3 tenths up. I think I should have enough of a gap up front to hold on to my lead. The pack has definitely closed in, as we've now driven, I think, 18 miles up to this point. So it's fair to say that we're definitely going balls to the wall here. And I am convinced in saying that this time at least, we have got this one first try. After suffering for 3 days with the Skylines, I win the Amuse S2000 battle on my first try by half a second. I am so glad that's now over, and it took me 51 minutes of recording to get there. And the gap from first to last was just 1.4 seconds. So for winning another 10 grand, I'm so glad this is over now. I did also make sure to save a replay as well. I'm sure I did. So less than 0.7 of a second to the first black S2000, then it's the first of the silver S2000s that rounds off the podium. So basically all 3 colours on the podium. Then the second black Amuse S2000 was 4th, followed by the second silver S2000, alliteration there. And at the back we had the third black Amuse S2000. Okay, now we move on to the prize car. And I have a feeling this one is an old friend. And I say that because, well, I did use this car to win the GT All-Stars in GT3. Hopefully that gives you a clue. But anyway, this is what we get. The Pagani Zonda LM race car. Ironically, an old adversary of ours, as we did use this car to win the GT All-Stars in GT3. But either way, that's what we get. The Pagani Zonda LM race car. Definitely a car I will consider using at some point. Anyway, so that was part 3 of the driving missions. And next up, we have part 1 of the 1 lap magic. And then after that, we've got part 2. Of course, this will be coming a bit later on, but either way, we've probably got the most strenuous thing of this game out of the way. Oh yeah, by the way, if you're asking me why we're on the 3rd menu theme and not the 2nd, well, that's because I basically backed out of the game to save it. Oh yeah, I did also unlock a few tracks whilst I was stuck in the trial and error. I guess it must be based on your diary entries, supposedly. So we are now up to 21% flat in terms of our completion, as I think we've gained a total of precisely 0.7%. So we're now up to 59 cars in our garage, and this is the latest of those, the Pagani Zonda LM race car. And we can sell this thing for 318 grand. But because this thing is an old friend, and because I really don't want to have to go through the Slipstream battles again, after the 3-day struggle I went through just to get through Mission 23, we now have the Pagani Zonda LM race car. Ironically an old friend of ours, and also because it has my racing number as well. Okay, I'm done faffing about now. So, next up will be the World Classic Car Series, coming in the next episode of GT4.